I want to talk about something really, really quick today. And this might rub some people the wrong way, but it might be something you need to hear to kind of light that fire under your butt or relight it. And I want to talk about the phrase, um, looks can be deceiving, or don't judge a book by its cover, right? We've heard these things before, but here's what I want to challenge to you, and I want you to really think about. You know, if you really look at it, your skin and your skin health that tells you what's happening in your liver. And if you look at, the disc the like the white stuff on your tongue, that's going to tell you what's going on in your microbiome. If you look at how you're holding water, that's going to tell you how your lymphatic system is draining. And if you look at your posture, that's going to tell you how healthy your musculature is, right? Or you look at how your fat is distributed, that's going to tell you what your hormones are doing, right? So, yes, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. However, the cover can tell you a lot about yourself and a lot about the people that you meet. And so, if you're tired of being judged, I encourage you to say, okay, if I'm a walking billboard, which technically we are, if I'm a walking billboard, what have I been advertising? What have I been walking around this world day in and day out advertising on my body without knowing it, unintentionally? Because you are putting out something into the universe. You are advertising something to the universe. And if you aren't intentional about curating that billboard, everything else will just be perpetuated without you even having control. Everybody else will be in control of your narrative, and they will judge you based on what they see and what you've allowed to show. And so if you are a walking billboard, what have you been advertising? Because, you can scream confidence without opening your mouth, right? And your presence can be felt without saying a single word. And if those things are true, then you have to ask yourself, if we've been complaining about being misunderstood, or why doesn't somebody support me, or why can't I do this, or why is this so hard? You have to ask yourself, it's not about being misunderstood because, you've been, you've been giving off a headline, right? What's your headline? Like seriously, if you were going, the way that you dressed today, the way that you dressed yesterday, would you get a job interview? Would you get a job, right? Right? And I'm not saying, you have to spend hours getting ready. I'm not saying you have to spend hours or even like hundreds of dollars on special products or anything like that. But it's like the unit you're almost like auditioning for the universe every day, you know? Or auditioning to God if you're religious, whatever your proclivity is. Every morning you wake up, you're kind of auditioning. And I love to say, have main character energy. Pretend you're being filmed every day. Pretend somebody's watching every day, and you'll act different. You'll dress different, right? Because if what's going on the inside shows up on the outside, you can't hide, or you can only hide for so long. And if you're gonna hide, it's pretty exhausting and you're gonna burn out. You're gonna be frustrated. You're gonna have no energy left to take care of yourself, right? What's depression? You've depressed yourself. You've depressed your inner self. You've been playing a role. You've been pretending to be something you're not. And that gets exhausting. You can only pretend for so long, right? You ever tell a lie or a little white lie, a little fib, and then it got way blown out of proportion and you had to keep up with it, and then you forgot this detail, and then you get caught in your lie and it's a big mess? And you could have just told the truth in the first place or just refused not to lie. In my life, I'm very careful with who tells me secrets. When someone says, "Hey, I have to tell you something, but you can't tell anybody." You ever hear that before? Sometimes I will literally say, "Sorry, don't tell me." I don't want to have to remember what I can and can't say. I don't want to have to remember what that person shouldn't know and what that person shouldn't know. That's not the life I want to live. Because if I'm covering things up for you, not necessarily covering things up, but unconsciously, then what have I been covering up for myself? And then we create this bigger gap of delusion of where we think we are. That's why a lot of the times clients come to me And they don't even realize how they gained so much weight. They didn't even realize that they got this bad, right? They started with me because they saw a picture of themselves and they're like, "Whoa." Right? Or they went to go buy a dress for a wedding and they're like, "Oh my God, nothing fits me anymore." Right? It's like, of course we knew we weren't being the healthiest, and of course we knew we were probably gaining a little bit of weight, but we didn't know it got so bad. And that's because we were avoiding it, we were hiding from it, and we weren't paying attention to what we were advertising. You are a walking billboard. I can tell the bags under your eyes, the puffiness of your cheeks, right? What do your hands look like? When you walk, what's your gait like? We can assess a lot about what's going on inside just by looking at you and judging a book by its cover. Not completely, but definitely getting a good summary. And I don't think that's unfair to say. I think everybody can agree to some degree. And so, really simple for today's call, you have to realize that you are a walking billboard. Every day you are waking up, you are auditioning to the universe for that dream life you want. What's your dream? To be a certain weight, to own a cottage, to travel blank amount of years, to get out of debt, to have a dream wardrobe. Like, I don't know what your dream is, but you are auditioning for it every day. Would you give yourself the job? Would you put yourself in that role with the effort and the appearance and the cover that you've been advertising? And if the answer is no, that's okay. You didn't know, but now you do know. So now you can change. Now you can be more aware. It just starts with awareness, right? Little things here and there. How can you show up and be a billboard worth looking at? Right? Think about all the billboards you pass all day long, and even, the virtual billboards on ads you scroll through all day long. Look at the ones that make you stop and look at the ones that make you scroll. What's the difference? If you want an exceptional life, you have to look exceptional. Isn't that crazy? And not because this world is superficial and good-looking people get more opportunities, although, we could argue that that's the case too, but that's not why I'm saying go for a great physique and look the part. I'm saying it because what's required to get there is admirable, is uncommon. The discipline, the consistency, the do the boring work even on the hard days. That's some impressive stuff. That's somebody who I'd hire. That's somebody who I want on my team, a hard worker, someone who doesn't give up, doesn't crack under pressure, knows their priorities and pushes through. And so that's all I want to mention today. Short and sweet. You're a walking billboard for yourself. You're auditioning every day. When you wake up tomorrow, pretend like you actually really want it. Pretend like there's competition. And you'd act different, right? For that dream life, that dream body, you got some competition, right? Pretend you're competing with your future self. So what do you think she'd do? How'd she act? What decision would she make? What would she wear? That dream body you have in your mind? She's not wearing what you're wearing right now. So why are we waiting? If you want to get to her, you have to be her now, then reality catches up later. But you will never bring that future into current reality unless you behave like her now. And sometimes the only way to do that is pretend that you're competing for the same job. And you got to beat her ass. All right? Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you got any value at all, I'd love it if you left a 5-star review to help more women find this podcast and get the support that they need. And if you're looking to speed up your weight loss and take your transformation to the next level, then head on over to Trimera.com. TRIMMERA.com. I'll catch you on the next episode, and welcome to your Trim Era.